Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. This morning, I will be chairing the hearing. My name is Robert Hutchings. On the panel, joining me is Adila Del Oro and Doug Marks. The assessor representing the Assessment and Taxation Department, City of Winnipeg, is Mark Colatruglio, and our secretary today is Stephen Lunn. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with this board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questioning again. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Today on the docket, we will be hearing items 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, and 13 on our docket today. Mr. Lund, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Mark Colatruglio.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Applicant, please stand, and please state your full name.
Eric Gates.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Stephen. Excuse me. Good morning, Mr. Colatruglio. Ms. Cates,
Good morning.
I believe you're representing all the applicants on the docket today. Is that right, Ms. Cates?
That's correct.
And are there any preliminary issues you're going to be dealing with at all?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first property on the docket today is item number 2, file number 22-2312, 2 Prairie Oaks Cove, and we're dealing with a 2023 realty appeal. Mark, when you're ready, please.
Sure. Subject property roll number 075690459000. Street address 2 Prairie Oaks Cove. The neighborhood area is Assiniboia Downs. It's a 2-story built in 2008. It's a single family dwelling. Total living area 3,084 square feet with a walkout basement. Basement is finished.
Apologies, Mark. Could you speak closer to the microphone? We're having a hard time hearing you.
Sure. Hold on. These webcams, maybe I'll bring it a little bit closer. Is that better?
Yeah, it's a bit better.
Okay. Just bear with me here. These webcams don't have the best microphones. Okay, so it's a 2-story build, single family dwelling built in 2008. Living area 3,084 square feet with a walkout basement. Basement is finished. Total number of full bathrooms 4, half bathrooms 1 with 1 shower on record. Central air, yes. 1 fireplace, attached multiple garage, No pool, no sunroom. The assessed lot size, 27,858 square feet. Land influences is the Assiniboine adjacent, so this is on the river. The value under appeal is $1,350,000. Total assessed value per square foot, $437.74 a square foot. There's a lot of custom builds in this neighborhood. When selecting comparables for this particular property, it was difficult to find something similar in size with a walkout basement. What I did try to select was houses that are kind of similar in size and quality that are on river lots. Ideally, I do have one comparable. It's not on the river. The price per square foot vary on these comparables between as low as $355 a square foot to as high as $596.95 a square foot. So there is quite the range. Comparable number one is 330 Oak Forest Crescent, another two-story built in 2008. This is larger than the subject property at 4,011 square feet with a walkout basement. This is the only comparable that has a walkout that I was able to find. Basement is finished according to city records. 3 full bathrooms, 2 half bathrooms, and 2 showers. Central air and 1 fireplace like the subject. Also has an attached multiple garage like the subject. And this property has a pool, which the subject property does not. The assessed lot size of this particular property is 25,891 square feet, and it is also a river lot. This is actually the neighboring property to the subject. So this property is immediately east of the subject property. Comparable number 2, 18 Grand Oaks Cove, another 2-story built in 2008. A little bit larger than the subject, but not a whole lot, 3,154 square feet. No walkout basement, but full basement. Basement is finished according to city records. Full bathrooms, 3 1/2 bath with a shower, central air, and fireplace like the subject. This also has a multiple attached garage, in-ground pool as well, unlike the subject. This is not a river lot. And this lot is 25,673 square feet, has a land influence of heavy traffic, so inferior location to the subject. This property sold October 21st of 2019 for $1,050,000. Time adjusted, that's $1,161,300. $368.20 per square foot on the time adjustment. Comp number 3, 234 Oak Forest Crescent. It's a 2-story build, single family dwelling built in 2010, smaller than the subject property at 2,587 square feet. Not a walkout basement, but full basement. Basement finish, according to city record. Full baths, 2 and 1/2 bath, so a few less bathrooms than the subject. The subject has 5 total, and this one has 3. Has central air and 1 fireplace like the subject. Multiple attached garage, no pool at time of sale for this address. The lot is very similar to the subject. It sits on the river, and it's 27,022 square feet. This property sold in March of 2008 for $820,000. Time adjusted sale price is $918,400. The time adjusted sale price per square foot, $355.01. Comparable number 4, 266 Oak Forest Crescent. It's a 1-story, unlike the subject, which is a 2-story. This is a single family dwelling built in 2011. Total living area, 2,556 square feet. The full basement, not a walkout. Basement is finished, has 3 bathrooms total, 2 full and 1/2. 2 showers on record. Central air, like the subject, one additional fireplace relative to the subject, and attached multiple garage. The lot size is 17,637 square feet. It's also Assiniboine adjacent, but it is about 10,000 square feet smaller than the subject lot. This property sold in July of 2020 for $1,430,000. Time adjusted sale price is $1,525,800. And the time adjusted sale price per square foot, $596.95 a square foot. So there is quite a range in regards to the time adjusted sale price per square foot. There are some here that I would consider to be superior level of finish to the subject. But there is a range in that the low end of the range at $355 and the high end of the range at $596, and the assessment coming in at $437 and 74 cents a square foot. I think that the value is supported by these comparables, and we ask for confirmation. That's my presentation. I did attach the MLS listings and a map. So page 2 of the brief shows where the subject is relative to the comparables. And I did also attach, an MLS listing for the subject that was listed earlier this year, just to show the physical characteristics and some photos of the subject relative to the sales that were used. And then I've also attached the MLS listings for the comparables. That's my presentation. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Colatroglio. Ms. Cates, any questions on the assessor's brief presented?
Yes, thank you. So looking at your comp 1, you attached the MLS listing on page 7. So we could see from this listing that this house is quite luxurious with a lot of custom features. Would you agree that there are several features that it has that the subject doesn't? For example, double kitchen island, pool with waterfalls, pool bar, putting green, etc.?
Yes, I do agree with that.
So in looking still at comp 1, are you aware that in the year the property was listed and eventually sold, it was listed number 2 as the most expensive real estate on the market in Winnipeg?
I was not aware of that.
And have you considered any adjustments to account for the superior finishes and features of this comp?
I think you would need to adjust for a few of the physical differences for sure. The pool, the size, those are 2 typical things that would probably need to be adjusted downward. With the assessment coming in at about $102 a square foot lower, I think it's probably fair to say that I haven't done a quantification on those items to come up with an adjusted number, but the comparable is there to show a range. Because sales data is limited in this neighborhood, I've included it because it's the only walkout basement property that I could find like the subject.
Okay. And then going back to your page 1 and looking at comp 4, so we could see that comp 4 at 266 Oak Forest is a 1-story, whereas the subject is a 2-story. So would you agree that in the direct comparison approach, type should be matched between the subject and the comps for an accurate comparison?
I think in an ideal situation, if you could have all 2 stories, you would try to do that for sure. I don't think you necessarily have to. I mean, people in the market are going to look at what's out there, inventory for the neighborhood. They may be looking at a 1-story. They may be looking at a 2-story. I mean, in an ideal situation, you would have, all 2 stories of similar size to the subject, but when data is limited, you need to use what you can find. So there is one comparable that is a one-story.
And would you agree that bungalows generally would sell at a premium to 2 stories, kind of inflating that per square foot value?
It may. I haven't done analysis to see the price per square foot difference, so I can't really quantify the difference between the 1 and 2 story, but certainly there are a certain subsect of buyers that are looking specifically for a 1 story versus a 2 story.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Adila, any questions of the assessor's evidence?
No, I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, any questions of the assessor's evidence presented?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have no questions either. Ms. Cates, bear with us a second while we pull up your brief, please. Okay, Ms. Cates, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. So the property is 2 Prairie Oaks Cove. If you turn to page 2, you'll see a summary of some of the facts of the property, along with our requested assessment of $1,172,000. If you turn to page 3, we've included a property description, a lot of which the assessor has covered. So I'll just note the basement is 1,542 square feet, where 1,032 square feet is listed as finished. There are 3 bedrooms above grade noted, along with 4 full baths, and there's a triple attached garage. So I noted double attached, but I'm just going to make that correction now and say there's a triple attached garage. And as you'll see from the aerial photo, it is adjacent to the river. So if you turn to page 7, and then page 4 just also includes a Google map view of the subject, just to get a better feel for the area and the surrounding amenities. So if you'll go to page 7, you'll see an overview of our direct comparison approach. So there are a limited number of sales comparables. The neighborhood is comprised mostly of newer builds, so they've had less opportunity for turnover, just in that a lot of the original owners of the homes are still in the homes. So we've used 3 comparables, 2 the same as the assessor. So those 2 being 234 Oak Forest and 18 Grand Oaks Cove, but we've also included a 3rd comparable of 51 Mossy Oaks Cove. So if you'll turn to page 8, you'll see our comp sheet, which shows all of the characteristics of the comps compared to that of the subject. So in our analysis, we have put greater weight on comp 1, which is 234 Oak Forest Crescent. It is highly similar to the subject, both in terms of the improvements as well as the site, in terms of both the site size and the site influences. Though I do acknowledge that this comp is a bit smaller in living area than the subject. So, and this one gives us a time adjusted price of $355 a square foot. Now, if we turn to look at comp 2, this one is also highly similar to the subject in terms of the features of the improvement, as well as the site size, but the site influence is listed as heavy traffic. So just to speak on that a bit further, I do feel, based on the analysis, that the heavy traffic site influence is slightly misleading. So if I could direct your attention to my appendix, page 12, just to walk through where exactly the site is situated. Is everyone on page 12 with? So if you look at page 12 here, you see where the site is situated. It is given a heavy traffic influence due to its proximity to the perimeter highway, but it's still located within the exact same area as the other comps. And you see that it's not located right on a busy street, but it is getting that heavy traffic influence from its proximity to the perimeter highway. But if you look at what's surrounding the property, you see there's a lot of green space behind the lot. As well, it is still very close to the river. So while not a river lot, it is still being influenced by the river here. So if you could go back to page 8, just so we can look at the third comparable. So on page 8, our third comparable is 51 Mossy Oaks Cove. Again, highly similar to the subject, though the living area is a bit smaller as well. The lot size is smaller. So we've adjusted for that in terms of our requested value. So you'll look here that our requested value works out to $380 a square foot, which is kind of putting a bit of a premium on each of the comps. As well, it is putting a premium on what the median time adjusted price shows. As you'll see from our bottom table here, the median time adjusted price of the comps would be $355 a square foot. And then if you wanted to go to our appendix, which is starts on page 10, it just shows, we just have the aerial photos of the sites for all of the comps. As well, we've included the MLS listings for the different comps chosen. So if you just wanted to take a quick peek through there, you can kind of see the condition and just some further details on the other comps. And that would conclude my presentation for 2 Prairie Oaks.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Mr. Carlo Truglio, any questions of the appellant's evidence presented?
I do have a few questions. So in regards to comparable number 2 and the heavy traffic site influence, would you agree that the noise that the perimeter highway, without having a property to the rear of the yard for 18 Grand Oaks Cove, would be, I guess, a negative relative to the subject because of the close proximity? Would you agree that the noise off the perimeter is a negative?
I would agree that the site influences of Comp 2 is inferior to that of Comp 1, which is why we put a premium on our requested value in regard to what Comp 2 is suggesting for the time adjusted price per square foot.
Okay. And in regards to comparable number 3, the subject has a land area of 27,858 square feet. This one's about 15,000 square feet smaller. What kind of premium gets placed on the land to make that adjustment?
So essentially looking at Comp 3, I do agree the land size is small, 26 a square foot, and we're at that 380 range. So kind of putting a premium on all of the comps here. So it's not necessarily quantified number, but kind of looking at the comps as a whole and looking at the subject and seeing where it lands.
Yep, that's fair. In regards to the subject characteristics, the basement is listed as partially finished. Can you elaborate on what would make it partially finished as opposed to fully finished?
Yeah, so essentially I just went through the building details, and it was listed as 1,032 of 1,500, so it's kind of close to a 75%. So I can agree that there could be a difference in kind of terminology there, which is why I laid out this specific proportion of finished area in my property description, just so that the full information is there. But at around 75% finished, I noted it as partially, just because there is still a decent chunk that's left unfinished. But I can agree there could be a difference in terminology.
Okay, and typically you're going to see some unfinished area. The mechanical room, any sort of storage areas may be unfinished. That you're not going to see 100% of the basement area as finished, correct?
Yeah, no, I would definitely acknowledge that you wouldn't see 100% as finished, but based on other properties we've looked at, we've seen higher proportions. So just in terms of the analysis here, at around 75% finished, so leaving kind of a quarter of it unfinished roughly, I decided to put that as partially finished, but noting the exact numbers in the property description just for your reference and the board's reference.
Okay, but no suggestion that the area that is finished is partially finished, and that the area that is finished is fully finished and not missing some key finishing features, correct?
For sure.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mark. Doug, any questions of the appellant?
My question has been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Adila, any questions of the appellant?
My question's also been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Ms. Cates, I'm just looking at your page 8, your comparables. Page 8, right? Yeah. Do any of these have a walkout basement?
I don't believe that they do.
Okay. I'm just trying to look at the appendix here. Okay. And in your analysis, what kind of value would you attribute to, or would you consider walkout basement to be a premium to be adjusted for?
We haven't done like an exact quantification for the difference between the walkout basement and the standard basement, but I do feel like that added value from the walkout basement would be captured in our premium kind of applied to the requested value as compared to what the comps suggest.
Okay. Okay, and your request for adjustment of the assessment is, I'm sorry, it's $380 a square foot. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Based on the 3 comparables submitted. Okay, that is all my questions. Thank you very much. Any requirement to summary by either party? Mark?
I can quickly summarize. I feel that this area has a wide range in regards to values. The home as built, being a custom built home with some substantial high-end features such as the walkout basement, the curved architectural wall, the river influence and the large lot. I feel it's fair to say that the subject property falls somewhere in the middle of the comparables that were presented by both parties. And I think that the value using $437.74 a square foot is more than reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cates, any requirement for summary?
I'll quickly summarize as well. So for this property, what I would say is, though there are limited sales comparables, it still is important to select comps of this in the same area and of same type for an accurate comparison, and just making those upwards adjustments where needed. And I would say too, that when you look at the 2 comparables the assessor and I are both using, that does support our range requested today.
Thank you, Ms. Cates.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes 2 Prairie Oaks Cove. Next item on the docket will be item number 3, file number 22-1704. That's 374 Foxdale Avenue, and we're dealing with a 2023 realty assessment appeal. Mr. Colatriglio, if you just bear with me 1 second while I pull this up, this brief. Does everybody have it, Mark, Adila? Okay. Okay, Miss. Mark, when you're ready, please, 374 Foxdale Avenue.
Okay, so the roll number 0400-118-1700, street address 374 Foxdale Avenue, located in the River East neighborhood. This is a 2-story single-family dwelling built in 1981. Total living area 3,048 square feet. Full basement. Basement is finished. 2 full baths, 2 half baths, and 2 showers on record. Subject property has central air, has 1 fireplace, has an attached multiple garage, and has a in-ground saltwater pool, heated saltwater pool, and a 3-season sunroom. The assessed lot size, 21,477 square feet. The 2023 assessed value under appeal is $778,000. Total assessed value per square foot is $255.25 a square foot. Property last sold in September of 2014 for $650,000. I tried to select similar sized properties within the River East neighborhood, mostly sticking to two-story homes. They vary a bit in age, but most are around the mid 70s to the mid 80s. Comparable number 1, 380 Foxdale Avenue is 2 doors down from the subject and similar in construction quality. This is a 2-story single family dwelling built in 1976. We do have a slight age variant to 1981 on this address. Total living area is slightly smaller than the subject, 2,494 square feet. Full basement. Basement is listed as finished. 4 bathrooms like the subject, however, 1 additional half bathroom and 1 less full bathroom relative to the subject. Same number of showers, 1 additional fireplace. Comparable one also has central air. Multiple attached garage, no pool, no sunroom relative to the subject property. Slightly larger lot, but close at 22,276 square feet. This property sold June 24th of 2019 for $570,000. Time adjusted sale price $636,100. The price per square foot very similar to the assessed value per square foot for the subject, $255.05 a square foot. This was the only sale that is close out of the comparables that I've used in regards to the lot size of the subject. Comparable number 2, 28 Algonquin Avenue, also in the River East neighborhood, 2-story single family dwelling built in 1975. Slight age variant to 1980 for the effective age. This property is slightly larger than the subject at 3,376 square feet. Full basement, which is finished. Same number of bathrooms as the subject for both the full and half baths. 1 additional shower, 2 additional fireplaces. Comparable to has central air like the subject. Multiple attached garage. No pool like the subject and no sunroom like the subject, or unlike the subject, I should say, for both of those. Assessed lot size is significantly smaller than the subject property. This is 13,298 square feet. It is adjacent to Bunds Creek. It sold February 22nd of 2021 for $610,000, $610,28. Time adjusted sale price $615,500 for a time adjusted sale price per square foot of $182.32. Comparable number 3 is 60 Brams Bay. This is a 2-story single family dwelling built in 1984 with an age variant to 1999. It's slightly smaller than the subject property, 2,834 square feet. Full basement, which is finished. Same number of bathrooms as the subject, 1 additional shower. Has central air. Same number of fireplaces as the subject. Multiple attached garage. No pool, no sunroom, unlike the subject. Again, this is a slightly smaller, or significantly smaller, I should say, lot, 7,983 square feet. This is also, or it's not Bunds Creek adjacent, but it is Bunds Creek influence. So this one sold in December of 2020 for $720,000. Time adjusted sale price is $739,400. And time adjusted sale price per square foot is $260.90. Comparable number 4 is 6 Fair Place, also in the River East neighborhood. This is a 2/1 story, which typically means that the full main floor area does not have a full 2-story over the full area. So part of the house is a 2-story, and there is a piece of the house that is just a 1-story. Single dwelling. Built in 1977, 10-year age variant to 1987. significantly smaller in living area relative to the subject. This is 2,348 square feet, full basement, which is finished. One full bath, 3 half baths, so one less full bath and one more half bath relative to the subject, one less shower. This comparable has central air. It has one additional fireplace relative to the subject, has a built-in garage. And this property has a sunroom, but no pool. And it sits on a smaller lot than the subject at 12,345 square feet. This property sold in November of 2019 for $485,000. Time adjusted sale price is $540,300. And the time adjusted price per square foot, $230.11. There is quite a range in regards to the price per square foot on the comparables. The low end being $182.32 and the high end being $260.90. I think the best comparable is comparable number 1. Though it is a bit smaller, the rest of the features are very similar to the subject. It is missing a pool and it is missing a sunroom, but I think in the size difference, it's kind of offset by the fact that it is missing those features. That's at $255 a square foot. The assessed value is at $255 and 25 cents a square foot. I think that the value at $778,000 is supported. I'm asking for confirmation today. I'm open to any questions. Again, I've attached a map on page 2, just showing the comparables relative to the subject property. I did not include any MLS listings because I didn't have an MLS listing, a current MLS listing for the subject property. So I felt that without having something to compare to, it was difficult. There was a dated MLS listing that I looked at in 2013, I believe, for the subject. So I did have a look at the finishes at that time, but I'm not certain as to how things have changed since then. But yeah, that's my presentation. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Excuse me. Ms. Cates, any questions on the assessor's evidence presented?
Yes, thank you. So looking at your comps 1 and 4, we could see that they both have a smaller living area than the subject. So comp 1 by about 554 square feet and comp 4 by about 700 square feet. Would you agree that smaller living areas tend to inflate the sale price on a per square foot basis?
Yeah, typically, yes. If that's the only difference, you typically would see some economies of scale. But I think it's important to note that there are some other key physical differences, like the pool and the sunroom, that would also need to be accounted for, as well as the difference in the bathroom types. So all things considered, I felt like it was comparable.
Okay. And for comp 3, we could see a gap of about 15 years between the effective year built and the actual year built. So I would assume this is due to renovations, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that is correct. So typically when you see an effective age, it indicates some level of renovation. This property in particular has a 15-year effective age added onto it. It would indicate some level of renovation for sure.
Okay, and whereas to confirm the subject has the same actual year built as effective year built.
Yeah, so without having seen the property, I did not have a chance to inspect the property or to review current pictures. I can't comment as to the current condition and whether an effective age would be warranted. Like I said, I looked at an MLS listing in 2013, which is prior to the current owner having purchased the property. So I don't know what the current owner has done to the property to say whether there should or shouldn't be an effective age. But as it stands, the city record does not have an age variant for this file, for this property.
Okay, sounds good. But it's fair to say that you didn't opt to inspect the property then to see if that should be updated then prior to this appeal.
Yeah, I did not have a chance to inspect the subject property.
Okay. And looking at your comp 4 again, we could see that this is a 2/1 story, whereas the subject is a 2-story. So would you agree that in the direct comparison approach, it would be most accurate to compare a 2-story with a 2-story?
Again, I think ideally, yes, but when data is limited, I don't think it's unreasonable to look at similar size, similar age homes. This one is smaller, but it is hard to find larger lots in the River East neighborhood. So the sample was fairly small to draw from. So yeah, I do agree that, you know, typically you would want to stick to the same building type, but I don't think that it's unreasonable to look at other like it is partially a 2-story. It's just that there's a section of the house that is a 1-story. And I think buyers in the market would look at the total inventory of what's available, as opposed to just like they're not going to disregard or put blinders onto a potential property just because it's like some buyers might be specifically looking for a 1-story. Some might be specifically looking for a 2-story. This kind of has both elements. I think it would still end up being something that a potential purchaser would look at.
Yeah, and I would agree that buyers may be looking at both, but just in terms of the direct comparison approach, where we're looking at sales comps on a per square foot basis, comparing to the subject property, like you would agree that the accuracy, it's more of an accuracy thing with the price per square foot rather than if buyers would be looking at 1-stories and 2-stories.
It could be. It's hard to say. I mean, you're still using the total square footage and the sale price to calculate your price per square foot.
Okay, that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Adila, any questions of the assessor's evidence?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, any questions of the assessor?
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Mark, my question is the difference in the subject property having an in-ground pool and a sunroom. Can you quantify how much difference in the marketplace the model would assign to that? Or maybe I'll put it a different way. Do you have an opinion of what additional value would it add to the subject property?
So hard to say because it is almost 20 years old at this point. It was added in 2004. The permit value at that time was $32,000. I would say that if you were replacing a saltwater pool today, that the cost would be significantly higher. How the model would value it, though, is that there would be some depreciation factored in based on the age. So it is hard to give you a number, but certainly you would see an adjustment upward for the comparables that don't have a pool or a sunroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for that answer. Thank you. Okay, that was my only question. And Ms. Cates, bear with us 1 second, please, while we get to your brief regarding the subject property. Okay, there we are. Ms. Cates, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. So the property is 374 Foxdale Avenue. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see a summary of some of the property details, along with our requested assessment of $685,000. If you turn to page 3, you'll see a property description here. So the property is a 2-story of about 3,048 square feet, and it has a finished basement. There are 4 bedrooms above grade and a double attached garage, and there are no land influences noted for this property. So if you'll look on this same page, we have an aerial photograph showing where the site is situated. If you turn to page 4, you'll see a Google Map view of the subject, just showing the surrounding amenities. and just the surrounding area. Now, if you'll turn to page 7, you'll see an overview of our direct comparison approach. So we've used 4 comps. The time-adjusted sale prices for our comps range from $169 a square foot to $210 a square foot, where the median time-adjusted sale price is $186 a square foot. We have placed greater weight on our comps 1 and 2 due to their higher degree of similarity. Comps 3 and 4 also provide extra support, but their lot sizes are a bit smaller. So if you turn to page 8, you could see the breakdown of the characteristics of the comps compared to that of the subject. So comp 1 at 342 Foxdale, pretty similar in terms of improvements, characteristics, and land area, and as well on the same street. I do note for this one that it appears to be a private sale, so I couldn't see the MLS listings in terms of speaking to.
You know what, Ms. Cates, I'm sorry to interrupt, but somebody's got music playing in the background here. Can somebody?
It's outside the room.
Oh, outside. Oh, okay.
You'll hear me or no?
Yeah, Stephen, is there any way that we can kind of mute that a little bit? Because I'm having difficulty hearing Ms. Cates now.
Unfortunately, I don't think I can. It's
okay.
They're having a flag raising outside in the foyer.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry, Ms. Cates. Maybe would you mind speaking up or as loud as possible? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Sounds good. Is this better? Like, is this okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So just to summarize for comp 1, it is highly similar, though, like I was saying, it is a private sale by the looks of it, so I couldn't see MLS photos speaking to the current condition of it. And you'll see that our requested value on a per square foot basis does apply kind of a premium to account for this that can't really speak to the condition here. But in terms of the improvements overall and the site, highly similar and on the same street. Looking next at comp 2 at 28 Algonquin Avenue, it is a bit bigger than the subject, but again, highly similar. Still having a large lot, though not quite as large, but finding, 20,000 plus square foot lots in River East is a bit of a challenge. So I would consider this 13,000 to still be having a large lot size. And then looking at comps 3 and 4, I would say they're not as similar as comps 1 and 2, but they're still about as similar as we could find in terms of matching them with the subject. They do have smaller lot sizes as well, which is acknowledged in terms of our requested value. So you'll see here that our requested value is at $225 a square foot. So again, this is applying like a premium to each of the comps to kind of account for some of those differences, as well applying a premium to what the median time adjusted sale price suggests at $186 a square foot. In terms of just commenting on the pool situation for a moment, I would suggest that in a house like this, whether like in terms of this market range, whether there is a pool or there isn't a pool, it's not necessarily a value add. I would agree that it does have an effect on the value, but it's not necessarily a value add where a premium needs to be applied in terms of, this type of market. If we're looking at houses that are, in the million plus range, then I could see the point where the pool would just be, an added feature there. But in terms of the pool of the subject versus with the comps, I wouldn't necessarily agree that a premium needs to be applied to those comps to account for the difference in pool, because the pool would be very subjective of who's looking for the house and what their preferences are regarding the pool. So I believe all of those comps support our requested value here of $685,000 or $225 a square foot. And if you turn to page 10, this is the start of our appendix. So I've included here the MLS listings for the different comps. So this will be for comps 2 to 4 because comp 1 did not have an MLS listing. But these would be all the MLS listings available, just showing the general condition of those comparables used. And that would conclude my presentation for 374 Foxdale.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cates.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Mr. Colatuglio, any questions of the appellant's evidence?
I do have a few questions. So in regards to first the subject property itself, since the owner purchased this property, have they made any improvements to the property?
Based on our file notes of previous communication that we had, they did do some work on the basement, but essentially it was fully finished when they bought it. They just did some upgrades there, so it's still fully finished. So it's more of just an upgrade situation. So that would be my knowledge of the changes to the property.
Okay, yeah, and they did take a permit out for that in 2019, declared construction value of $30,000. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I believe that sounds about right.
Okay. Now, in regards to the comparables, you said that typically you wouldn't adjust for a pool. Is it something that each buyer may or may not want? The sunroom, is that like when you're doing a direct comparison appraisal, typically you would adjust for physical characteristic differences, correct? So the pool and the sunroom should at least be contemplated for an adjustment. Investigated, I should say, for an adjustment, and whether it's made or not would depend on what you find, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in regards to the lot size, your comparable number 4 is over 4 times smaller than the subject. Would you agree that certain buyers that are looking for larger lots might be deterred from purchasing something significantly smaller like that? And I would say the same for comparable 3. It is significantly smaller as well. Would you say that there's a certain buyer that would specifically be looking for larger lots that may be deterred from looking at these properties because the lot size is significantly smaller?
What I would say is, in an area such as this, finding 20,000 plus square foot lot sizes to compare to is challenging. So yes, if someone was looking for like a 20,000 square foot lot, then perhaps they would not be interested in a 5,800 square foot lot or a 7,700 square foot lot. But at the same time, we've chosen comps that all have the same zoning, so would support similar usage. And I do acknowledge that comps 3 and 4 do have smaller lots, which has been taken into account in terms of our requested value.
Okay. Now, in regards to the comparable 59 Parkway, would you agree that the overall construction quality seems to be slightly inferior to the subject?
I wouldn't necessarily agree. I mean, what I've done is looked at the subject and then looked at the photos provided from the MLS listing, kind of speaking to overall condition. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's inferior. Okay.
Yeah, and then just more, the reason I ask in that the comparable at 59 Parkway and also the comparable at 342 Foxdale, when you look at that, when you look at those houses from the curb, they appear to be your more typical 2-story layouts that you would see in the market. So your standard kind of builder 2 stories versus the subject, when you look at it on your page, two, seems to be more of a higher end model, like a premium in the construction quality. Would you agree with that?
If that's your assessment based on the photos, then I think that can be fair. But when we're doing the comparables analysis, we're looking at kind of the objective features and matching those up. But I mean, kind of as stated, like our requested value does add a premium to the comps overall. So if there is more curb appeal to our subject versus the comps, I believe that's already been accounted for.
Okay, that's fair. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Adila, any questions of the appellant?
I do. I think it would have been helpful to have some photos. So could you just speak to the overall quality of the finishings? I know you said there was some upgrades done in the basement in 2019. Have there been any other renovations or upgrades, or in the alternative, is there anything in need of repair in the property?
Based on our records, the permit taken out for the basement was the extent of the upgrades. We haven't heard anything else from the owner in regard to further upgrades, like in preparation for this appeal. So I can't speak to further upgrades. I would say the basement is what we have knowledge of. And I would say the house is probably in good condition, as we haven't heard anything to the contrary about, any type of maintenance due or anything of that sort.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adila. Doug, any questions of the appellant?
Yes, the sunroom, none of your comparables have a sunroom. Was that taken into consideration at the time?
In our comparables analysis, we haven't looked at the sunroom. Essentially, we prioritized looking at the features that we feel are more applicable. But I could see the point about the sunroom.
So on top of that, there's only one comparable that's a pool. Was that taken into consideration as well?
When we're looking at houses with pools, we do try our best to match with comps with pools. But when we do have a bit of a more unique home or something that's a bit harder to find comps for, sometimes we do have to use comps that don't have pools.
And the quality of the subject home compared to the comparables, is it a little higher quality home than the comparables?
Like potentially, as the assessor mentioned, there could be a bit more curb appeal, but I'm not aware of the comparables being, an inferior quality to the comps. I try to look for like homes that I would consider to be similar. Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you, Doug. Ms. Cates, I'm in regards to your comp page 14, the MLS listing, 59 Parkway. It states in the description that it's, steps away from shops and nearby transit. Is there some kind of commercial or traffic influence that this subject or this comp is close to?
I haven't looked into the specific site influences of the comps, but I'll see if I'm just going to look on our page 8 because it usually pulls in site influences. So we don't have any site influences of note from the city. So our template here usually would always pull those in. So I would say no, there's no site influences that have been assigned, but it may just be closer to some amenities.
Okay, thank you. My last question is, the assessor noted that the subject property sold, in 2014 for $650,000. The comps that you're that was back in 2014. The comps you're presenting in, selling in 2020, 2021 are selling for significantly less than that. Am I right? Sorry, bear with me here. They sold in 2020 and 2021 for $425,610, $460, and $540,000 approximately. So they sold for significantly less 6 years after the subject property. And looking at your page on the site map, what is at the rear of the subject property? It looks like, is that just a rear of a deep lot that's on McIver, or is there a park behind there? Or
yeah, I looked into that because I was curious if there was a park as well, but it is a VRES 1, I believe, so it's not considered park area. but something suitable for like residential development.
Okay, is there a home behind there, like on a large lot that, would you know that? Mark, would you know?
Yeah, I can answer that if you'd like.
Okay.
It is vacant residential at this point. It looks like it may be
Okay.
owned for future development, but at this point it's vacant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my question, sorry, was it sold for $650,000? You're asking for us to revise the assessment to, excuse me, $685,000. Let's see, 7 years in the marketplace. Does that seem? How do you reconcile that? I guess is my question.
For sure. What I would say is that the sale would be our starting point for analysis in terms of looking at that on a per square foot basis. But we place higher weight on the current market evidence and the current market comparables. So while I do acknowledge the sale and I do acknowledge your point there, the comparables those comparables would support something in the kind of high 600, low 7 range, even, you know, factoring in that sale that occurred there.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's all my questions. Mark, any requirement for summary?
Yep, quick summary. So I feel that the value as it stands at $778,000 is well supported from comparables within the market, namely my comparables 1 and 3 that support kind of the higher end construction and features of the subject property, as well as the larger lot size, and specifically comparable number 1. I feel like it is very comparable. Yes, it is smaller, but it is missing some of those other features like the pool and the sunroom. And I think it's important to look at the quality of the construction, some of the luxury features that this house has relative to some of the other comparables when we're doing our review of value. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cates?
Thank you. Yes, I would just like to point out, I feel the comps that we found, they're all in the same area of the same type of a more similar size. The big lot size is a bit harder to find, but I feel we have made the appropriate adjustments for where the subject is superior to the comps. And I feel our value of $685,000 would be supported within that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Okay, that concludes 374 Foxdale Avenue. Does any panel member require a quick break, or should we do one more and then have a break? Adila?
I'm okay to continue.
Okay. Doug, are you okay?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next property on the docket is item number 6. And the file number is 22-2772. We're dealing with a 2023 residential appeal, and it's 94 Pauline, Bhutan, Crescent. Mr. Colatriglio, bear with me 1 second while I pull the file. Okay.
You guys all ready?
Yes. Please proceed.
Okay, perfect. The subject property roll number 0600-242-0800, street address 94 Pauline, Bhutan, Crescent. This is in the Island Lakes neighborhood. It's a 2-story single-family dwelling built in 2002. Total living area, 1,821 square feet. We have a full basement, which is finished, a total of 2 full baths, 2 half baths, 1 shower. Subject property has central air conditioning, no fireplaces, has an attached multiple garage, no pool, no sunroom. Assessed lot size 5,117 square feet. And the subject assessment for 2023, which is under appeal, is $465,000, or a total assessed value per square foot of $255.35. Given the neighborhood and how the neighborhood was developed, there are a lot of very similar comparables for this type of property within Island Lakes. Unlike the last few files, we do have a lot of good sales information to draw from that are very comparable. Comparable number 187 Harbin Bay, same neighborhood, two-story single-family dwelling, 1 year older, 19 square feet larger than the subject, so very close in size. Has a full basement, which is fully finished. One full bathroom relative to the subject's two, but one additional half bathroom. So 3 half baths relative to the subject's two, one additional shower. Comparable number 1 does have central air and does have a fireplace. The subject does not have a fireplace. It does have an attached multiple garage like the subject, and it sits on a slightly smaller lot, 4,614 square feet. This property sold in June of 2019 for $475,000, and the time adjusted sale price is $520,100. Time adjusted sale price per square foot is $282.66 a square foot. This is the high end of the range that I show in the comparables on my first page. Comparable number 2, 288 De La Seigneurie Boulevard. This is a 2-story single-family dwelling, 5 years older than the subject, built in 1997. Slightly smaller at 1,773 square feet. The basement is fully finished. It's a full basement. Has 1 full bath, 3 half baths, 1 shower. Does have central air. Does have a fireplace. Multiple attached garage. This property does have a sunroom, whereas the subject does not. It does sit on a slightly smaller lot at 4,823 square feet. And I would say that the location is inferior as it sits on a parcel with the bus route, land influence, and medium traffic influence. So De La Seigneurie has more traffic, so inferior location relative to the subject. This sold just before the reference date, March 23rd of 2021 for $450,000. No time adjustment because it is so close. $253.81 a square foot. Comparable number 3 is actually the neighboring property to the subject. This is 98 Pauline Bhutan Crescent. 2-story house built in 2001. It's a single family dwelling. 1,816 square feet. Full basement, which is finished. This has 1 less bathroom than the subject, so it has 1 full bath and 2 half baths, so it's missing 1 full bath relative to the subject. Has central air and has a fireplace. Subject does not have a fireplace. Attached garage, attached multiple garage like the subject, though I did note that the garage is slightly smaller than the subject at 360 square feet. Whereas the subject property is 400 square feet for the garage. No pool, no sunroom, sits on a slightly bigger lot than the subject property at 5,359 square feet. This property sold in August of 2018 for $430,000. Time adjusted sale price is $473,000 for a time adjusted sale price per square foot of $260.46 a square foot. Comparable number 4 is 23 Pauline Bhutan Crescent, so same street as the subject, a little bit further up the road and around the corner. This is a 2-story home built 4 years prior to the subject in 1998, slightly larger at 1,853 square feet, full basement, which is finished, 1 less bathroom relative to the subject, 2 full baths, 1 half bath. No showers, so just a powder room and then 2 full bathrooms. Central air, yes. Fireplace, 1. Attached multiple garage like the subject. No pool, no sunroom. Sits on a slightly larger lot than the subject property at 5,603 square feet. This property sold in August of 2019 for $410,000. The time adjusted sale price is $448,048 and $500 for a time adjusted sale price of $242.04. So the range is between $242.04 and as high as $280.266. The subject property falls right in line at $255.35 a square foot. I think the best comparable to look at is the house right next door at 98 Pauline Bhutan. Very, very similar, one less bathroom, slightly larger lot, but overall very, very similar. 1 year older. That's at $260 a square foot. So I feel like the assessed value as it stands at $465,000 is more than supported and more than reasonable given the market evidence that was reviewed. Page 2 of the brief just shows the comparables relative to the subject property, just to help visualize the proximity of some of these sales. That is all for my presentation. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Colatruglio. Ms. Cates, any questions on the assessor's evidence presented?
Yes, thank you. So have you considered any adjustment to the comps, given that they all have fireplace and the subject does not?
I mean, you probably should, if you were doing a full appraisal, you'd want to adjust for that. I don't think it would be a significant adjustment for a fireplace. Might be looking at somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000 at most, depending on the quality of the fireplace. If it's just your basic builder fireplace, it may not be a whole lot at all. It also, the thing to consider is that some of these fireplaces may be decommissioned. They may not be in use at this point. They're there more as a visual piece, but I haven't confirmed or investigated as to what the working status is for the comparables. But yes, there would be a very slight adjustment that would be given for the fireplace.
Okay. And just for comp 2 with the sunroom, have you considered an adjustment for the sunroom where the subject doesn't have a sunroom?
Yes, you probably would also do an adjustment there. The degree to which you would adjust would depend on the level of finishes that are there in the sunroom and the size.
Sounds good. Yeah, that is all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Adela, any questions of the assessor?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
Yes, just one. With your comparables, are they all the same fit and finish throughout, or are they different builders? Or?
They may be different builders. I would say that all of these are typical to the area, which, they conform to the area. So there's nothing that's, drastically higher or lower quality. They're all built around the same time. There are a couple there that are slightly older that may have slightly more dated finishes, but it's within 5 years. It would be close, I would assume, across all of them. No age variance on any of these to suggest any major renovations on city record.
So it could be the same builder who went right through that.
Yeah, it could. It very, very well could be the same builder that built a bunch of very similar houses within that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, Doug. And I have no questions of the assessor. Ms. Cates, bear with me 1 second until we get to your brief. Ms. Cates, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. So the property is 94 Pauline Bhutan Crescent. If you turn to page 2, you'll see our summary of some of the property details, as well as our requested assessment of $444,000. If you turn to page 3, you'll see this is a 2-story residence in Island Lakes. It is 1,821 square feet and a basement finish of 812 square feet of the 1,039 square foot basement. there are 2 full baths and 2 half baths and a double attached garage. And if you look at the aerial photo provided, you can see where the site is situated. If you turn to page 4, you'll also see a Google Map view of the property. Now, if you turn to page 7, you'll see an overview of our direct comparison approach. So we found 4 similar properties to compare to. Their time adjusted sale prices range from around $238 a square foot to $252 a square foot, where the median adjusted price is $243 a square foot. So if you turn to page 8, you'll see all of the comparables laid out here. So all of the same type and very similar in size and features. And especially too, if you look at comp 4, which is on the same street at a price of $242 a square foot, this does support our requested value of $244 a square foot for the subject. So essentially what we've done here is laid out all of the comps, looking at the ones on the same street and doing a comparison there between what the median time adjusted sale price suggests. And that has brought us to our requested value of $244 a square foot. And if you turn to page 10, this is the start of our appendix. And again, it just goes through the MLS listings. So you could get a better idea of the condition of the different comparables used. So yeah, that would conclude my presentation on 94 Pauline Bhutan.
Thank you, Ms. Cates.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlo Truglio, any questions of the appellant's evidence?
I do have a few questions. The first being relative to the subject and the summary that's shown on page 8 with the comparables there. You do have the basement is listed as partially finished. City records show 78% of the overall basement area as being finished. Is there a reason that it's being characterized as partially finished?
I would say it's the same scenario as one of the earlier properties that we've done. So just a difference in terminology there, but I provided the finished area that's stated in the building details just on my page of the property description for everyone's reference. So again, I would just say just a bit of a difference in terminology there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did have a look at both your comparables and mine to see that the subject wasn't drastically smaller in percentage of basement finish. It does appear to be one of the higher levels of finish at 78%. I had 69% for 87 Harbin. I had 70% for 98 Pauline Bhutan. Didn't write down one of them. 23 Pauline Bhutan, 70%. Your comparable number 1, 28 Harbin Bay. If you go to the MLS listing, it doesn't appear to list any basement development, and it doesn't appear that there are any photos from within the basement. I did check city records. Are you aware that this property does not have basement finish?
Well, what we have on our comparable sheet, yes, would have been pulled in from the city records that we had available at the time. So the city records at the time that we pulled in the data would have reflected some basement finish, but we don't have the fully finished, partially finished definitions that we would have for matrix. So on our sheets, when it says yes or no instead of the kind of fully, partially unfinished, that's pulling in from the city records that were available to us.
Okay. In regards to 35 Coxswain Cove, there it's listed as partially finished. And if you look at the MLS pictures, it appears that it looks like the space has been drywalled and wired and painted, but no flooring or ceiling finish. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like I would agree. It's possibly not as finished, yes. But I guess just in our analysis, when we're looking at matrix and it's kind of listed by the realtors, we don't have the exact proportions in front of us. So we just default to the terms that they use.
Gotcha. So yeah, just to note that according to my records at least, comparable one would need an adjustment for some level of basement finishes currently. Like I said, I can't see any on the MLS listing there. And I didn't see any within the city records. And then in that comparable 3 would be partially finished relative to the fully finished subject property. Is there a reason that some of the other sales on the street, like the neighboring property that sold 98 Pauline Bhutan, wasn't used? Like, it seems weird that we would use some comparables that don't have fully finished basements when there are other sales available that do.
In terms of, like, this is just what I pulled in. I wouldn't say that there aren't other comparables that could have been used, but this is what I've used today.
That's fair.
So questions should probably focus on what I've actually pulled in.
Yeah, that's okay. I actually have no further questions.
Thank you. Doug, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, just one. Which of your comparables would best compare to the subject property?
I would say probably comparable 4 at 23 Pauline Bhutan. It's on the same street. Very similar in terms of features as well. So yeah, I would say comparable 4 if I had to pick one.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Adela, any questions of the appellant?
No, my question was regarding the comparable as well, and they've been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. Mark, any requirement for summary?
I'll just quickly summarize that I feel like there's very strong market evidence within this neighborhood for this type of 2-story house around 1,800 square feet that support the value as it stands at $465,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Cates, any requirement for summary?
No summary needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that concludes 94 Pauline Bhutan Crescent. And I think we will take a 5-minute break. So we'll be back at about 10:30. Can we recess, please? Thank you, Stephen. I'll now call the hearing back to order. Next property on the docket is item number 7, file number 22-1809, 20 Lancaster Boulevard, and we're dealing with a 2023 realty assessment. Mr. Colatroglio, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So roll number 10002927200, street address 20 Lancaster Boulevard. This is located in the Tuxedo neighborhood. It's a 2-story single-family dwelling built in 1974. The brief shows no effective age, and current city records do not have an effective age. However, when reviewing this property, I did find that there was some significant renovation work that was undertaken that would warrant an effective age. My estimation is somewhere to the 15 to 20 year range. So like I said, it's not currently factored into the assessment, but probably ought to be based on the level of work that was completed for this property. The living area, 3,320 square feet, full basement, which is finished, 1 full bath, 4 half bathrooms, 2 showers. Subject property has central air conditioning, 3 fireplaces, attached multiple garage, which I noted as 725 square feet. The basement is finished 78%. There is an in-ground pool at this property. It sits on a lot assessed at 13,605 square feet. There are some land influences. It's an external corner and a park. So in front of the subject property across the street is a park. You can see that on page 2 when you review the comparable map and where the subject property is. The current assessed value is $1,092,000. Total assessment per square foot, $328.92 a square foot. I did try to stick within the Tuxedo neighborhood for similar sized, in some cases slightly older, but two-story homes. There are quite a range in regards to the sale price per square foot, time adjusted. So comparable number one, this is 423 Laidlaw Boulevard, two-story home, single family dwelling built in 1959. There is a 10-year H variant, 3,519 square feet. The basement is listed as full/part area. So typically this would imply that the full main floor does not have a full basement underneath. There may have been an addition that have been placed on this house where there's no basement underneath. Basement is listed as fully finished. Same number of bathrooms as the subject, one additional shower. Also has central air, one less fireplace relative to the subject. Attached multiple garage, which I note is significantly smaller than the subject at 462 square feet. In-ground pool, yes, and sits on a slightly smaller lot, 9,745 square feet with no land influences. So no corner or park influence like the subject. This property sold in November of 2020 for $900,000. Time adjusted sale price $924,300. Time adjusted sale price per square foot $262.66. This is the low end of the range that I show in the comparables that I found within the market. Comparable number two, 19 Car Martha Boulevard. This is a two-story single-family dwelling built in 1967. It does have an age variant that's placed on it to bring the effective age up to 1992. 2,969 square feet, full part area for the basement type, and the basement is listed as fully finished. One less bathroom than the subject property, two full, so one more full bathroom relative to the subject, but two less half bathrooms. Two showers, same as the subject. Does have central air. Does have two fireplaces. Has an attached multiple garage. It also has a detached multiple garage. This is located on a similar sized lot. No pool relative to the subject. Similar sized lot, 12,126 square feet, and does have the park influence. No external corner influence, with the park influence is similar to the subject. This property sold in July of 2020 for $1,115,000. The time adjusted sale price is $1,175,200. And the time adjusted sale price per square foot, $395.82. This is the high end of the range. So they range from between $262 to $395. Comparable number three, 75 Folkstone Boulevard. This is also in Tuxedo, two-story single-family dwelling, built the same year as the subject property, and I would say probably with the 15-year H variant on file, probably very similar in regards to the level of upgrades that the subject has. This is slightly smaller than the subject at 2,873 square feet, full basement, which is finished. Like the subject, has two full baths, two half baths, so overall one less bathroom relative to the subject. Central air, yes. Has one fireplace, whereas the subject has three. Multiple attached garage, which I noted was slightly smaller than the garage at the subject, 552 square feet. This one does also have an in-ground pool like the subject, no sunroom. Sits on a 11,992 square foot lot. I would say not as good of a location. It does have the commercial adjacent influence as well as the community/recreation center building influence. This one sold in September of 2019 for $955,000. The time adjusted sale price is $1,034,300. Time adjusted sale price per square foot is $360.01. Comparable number 4, 10 Holdsworth Avenue, also located within the Tuxedo neighborhood. It's a 2-story single-family dwelling built in 1968, 20-year age variant to bring the effective age to 1988, 2,992 square feet, full basement. Basement is finished. It has 1 less overall bathrooms than the subject. However, it has 2 more full bathrooms, so 3 full bathrooms, 1 half bath, 1 shower. It does have central air, has 1 less fireplace relative to the subject, multiple attached garage, and this property does have a sunroom, however, has no pool. Located on a slightly smaller lot than the subject, 9,746 square feet, does have the park land influence, but does not have the external corner. October 2019, this property sold for $950,000. Time adjusted sale price $1,028,800. The time adjusted sale price per square foot $343.85. I think given the range that we're seeing, and I think the comparable number 1 is, I would say, even though it's the closest in size to some of these, is a bit of an outlier in regards to the price per square foot. And I would say that the age it's the oldest comparable as well. But the remainder of these, $395 a square foot, $360 a square foot, $343 a square foot, the subject is coming in at $328. I think given the differences between some of these properties in regards to the age and size and the lot and location, I think the $328.92 is fair. And I'm asking for confirmation of the value at $1,092,000. I did include on page 2 a map showing the location of the subject and the comparables. I did also include on page 3 to the end of the brief, actually page 3 and 4 are a residential request for information form that was submitted by the owner after our residential review program. So we did have some questions about some of the upgrades or renovations at the properties. On here, you'll note that on page 4 of the brief, they provide an estimated percent of renovated finishes. So it looks like the roof was done somewhere between 11 and 15 years ago, 100%. That's more of a maintenance item, but the flooring was 50% done between 11 and 15 years ago. The bathrooms were 100% done. The kitchen cabinets and countertops were 100% done. And there was some structural work that was done. You'll see that on bullet point 11 there. The permit that is on page 5 of the brief kind of outlines the work that was done. So this is a permit that was taken out in 2009. Declared construction value $150,000. So a significant amount of money in 2009 was put into this property for exterior and interior alterations. When I did look at the plans, it looked like there was they were removing a sunroom that used to be here on file. They were taking down a wall between the kitchen and dining room and redoing the kitchen. They were renovating the bathrooms, and they were reworking the configuration of the ensuite off of the upstairs bathrooms. And they were doing some renovation work in the basement around the bar area of the lower level. So a significant amount of money was spent doing some renovation work, and I've included the questionnaire so that the board can see exactly what was included in that as per the owner and the permit, so that they can see that the work was undertaken. Just to speak to the fact that, you know, the brief doesn't show an effective age, but like I said, there probably ought to be one based on the work that was done there. So that is my presentation. I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ms. Cates, any questions of the assessor's evidence presented?
Yes, thank you. So looking at your comps on page 1, can we agree that they all have effective ages that are newer than their actual year built?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and I've included them because I felt that the subject was similar in that, even though the brief does not show that.
So, and these effective ages would be indicative of kind of noteworthy renovations or upgrades?
Correct.
So, and especially too, when we look at comp 2, that has about a 25-year gap between the actual and effective, that would be based on the complete gutting and redesign / rebuild that occurred in 2010.
Yeah, I didn't look at the specifics of that particular work that was done for that comparable, but yes, it would indicate some level of renovation work. As to whether it's a gut job, probably can't speak to that without having to review the work that was done or inspecting that property.
It was listed in the MLS listing for that property. Did you view the MLS listing?
I did. I didn't note that down, but I did look at those MLS listings.
Okay. So when you're speaking of the subject and you say the effective year built probably ought to be different, yet the bulk of the renovations took place in 2009. It was not, the effective year built was not updated in 2009 or any year following or in preparation for this appeal today. So what is the basis for saying that it should be updated now based on work done in 2009 when there's been no update?
Well, it has to do with the fact that in the past, the decision was made not to. I feel like if we had come across this today, we would have. I don't think that because we didn't put an effective age, we shouldn't speak to the improvements that were done as part of the this hearing. I didn't change the brief because the model value reflects no effective age. So the value that's under appeal is based on the fact that we didn't have an effective age. But what I'm saying is that based on what the owners submitted and based on the permit and the review of the building plans that were done in preparation for this hearing, that I would think that there ought to be an effective age. And I would think somewhere between the 15 to 20 year. But without having inspected myself, it is difficult to make that change. But it is something that I would feel is warranted based on what the owner's reporting and what the permitted work is and the declared construction value of that work.
And would you agree that the city would have had access to the permit the year it was taken out in 2009 in order to make these changes?
Yes, of course they would have. Yeah.
Okay. So if we turn to your page 4, would you agree that the majority of the renovations noted took place in the range of 11 to 15 years ago?
Yes, that is correct.
And would you agree that given this time frame that market standards regarding modernization and upgrades may have changed?
Relative to today's standard?
To the reference date?
To the reference date, for sure.
And then my final question would just be, you show the permit on page 5. So you're submitting a permit from 12 years ago when our reference date is April 1, 21 as evidence of the market value today, when this is a permit from many, many years prior?
Yes, that's correct. And I feel like it's important to include it because the work has been completed at that property. If it was to sell on April 1st of 2021, the work that was done in 2019 would be there as the property stands, and they would be, a potential purchasing would be looking at the work that was done at that time. They wouldn't be looking at the 1974 finishes that were when the house was originally built, because that renovation work was completed. They would be seeing some updated finishes. 50% of the flooring was done. The bathrooms were modernized. and the kitchen was modernized at the time. So yes, there would be some slight dating in those finishes, but it wouldn't be the original finishes from 1974 that they'd be looking at. So I think it is important to keep that in mind when we're looking at the value for this property.
Okay, thank you. That is all of my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Adila, any questions of the assessor?
With respect to the effective age, so you're saying if you had given it a younger, like an upgraded age, your assessment would then have increased. Am I right?
That is correct. Yeah, the model looking at a more newer effective age would value the property higher for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adila. Doug, any questions of the assessor?
Yes. Have you been inside the subject property?
I have not been inside the subject property. I did not have a chance to inspect, unfortunately.
Okay. And which one of the comparables would be best?
So when I looked, I put a lot of weight on comparables 2 to 4. I felt like the worst comparable that I showed was comparable number 1. If I had to pick a best, I probably would pick, I don't know, maybe 75 Folkstone. But I feel like that's a tough question. Maybe 10 Holdsworth as being the best, in that it has a similar park location versus the commercial adjacent and community center. But those were the main ones that I really looked at. Comparables 2 to 4 I felt were the strongest, and comparable 1 I felt was the weakest.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, Doug. Ms. Cates, bear with us a second before we get to your brief. And okay, Ms. Cates, 20 Lancaster Boulevard, please.
Okay, thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our summary of the property details along with our requested assessment of $950,000. If you turn to page 3, you'll see our property description. So this property is located in Tuxedo. It's a 2-story, built in 1974, and it has a site size listed of 13,605 square feet. The house is 3,320 square feet, and it has a finished basement. And there are 4 bedrooms along with what's listed as one full bath and 4 half baths. And there is a double attached garage. And I note the subject is on an external corner and is adjacent to a park. And you could see from the aerial photograph where it is situated. If you turn to page 4, you'll see a Google map view of the subject in terms of where it is within the neighborhood. If you turn to page 7, you'll see our overview of our direct sales comparables. So we've chosen 3 comparables here. I feel comp 1 is our best comparable, so it's been given greater weight. And comps 2 and 3, also similar to the subject's characteristics, though not necessarily been upgraded to the same standard as the subject. So if you turn to page 8, you'll see the comps laid out with all of their characteristics here. So comp 1 at 423 Laidlaw, it's very similar in size. It is slightly bigger though. And all of the other characteristics are fairly similar as well, though it does have a bit of a smaller lot size. In terms of our comps 2 and 3, again, trying to find comps that are similar in size and features. Comp 2, the lot size is more comparable. It is a bit bigger. And comp 3, again, same lot size as comp 1, so a bit smaller, but it is a bit of a challenge to find kind of 10,000 plus square foot lots. So we do our best to match the improvement features and then make upward adjustments where necessary. So our comps range from the time adjusted sale price of $240 a square foot to about $266 a square foot. We're requesting $286 a square foot today to account for some of these differences between the subject and the comparables. A note about the subject renovations: when you do look at the form that they have submitted, a lot of it was kind of upkeep in terms of new roof, windows, etc. So while I would say the subject is in good condition, it has been upgraded. It's been also a lot of kind of maintenance work there. And if you turn to page 10, that's just the start of our appendix. And I've, again, just included the MLS listings for reference to compare kind of condition. So that would conclude my presentation on 20 Lancaster. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cates. Mr. Carlo Triglio, any questions on the appellant's evidence?
Yeah, I do have a question. Just in regards to the subject location relative to the comparables, do you feel that the subject location has a better location than the comparables?
I would say in terms of location, we prioritize finding comps in the same neighborhood, which we've done here. In terms of maybe site influence with the park, I can see that being near a park would be possibly more attractive. But with that said, none of the comps chosen have any negative site influences either. So no, I wouldn't necessarily agree that the location, just because we have found comps all within the same Tuxedo neighborhood.
Okay, but you feel like the park wouldn't be a better location, like being close to the park?
I would say it would be a positive site influence for sure. Okay.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Doug, any questions of the appellant?
No questions from me at this time.
Thank you. Adila? Any questions, Adila?
No, I have no questions at this time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I do have an additional question.
Of course.
If I ask?
Of course.
In regards to the comparable number 282 Aldershot, the basement is listed as fully finished. City records show about 400 square feet of the total 1380 square feet that's down there. I'm getting, if it's listed as fully finished, is that specifically tied to the level of finishing for the finished area or the percentage of the basement area?
So to elaborate, so our information is pulled from a combination of matrix, so the MLS listing, and then if there's nothing speaking to basement finish on the MLS listing, we'll pull in city information. So given here, this would have been pulled in from the MLS listing. So that's what we were basing it off of.
Okay, yeah.
The sale was from 2019. Potentially something has changed since then with the city records. But we're going with MLS for where we can.
Gotcha. And I do see on the MLS, it does say fully finished. And looking at the pictures, it really only has one photo of the basement that shows some quite dated finishes down there. Wood paneling, looks like original carpet as well. Okay, that makes sense, because I'm getting a little bit confused on the partially finished and fully finished. Like if it's tied to the percentage, or if it's tied to the level of finishes, or if there's items that aren't finished. So I just wanted to clarify that.
For sure. Yeah, and I can acknowledge that, differences in terminologies between MLS and what the city's using can create some kind of vagueness there. So yeah, I try to clarify that where I can.
Okay, thank you. And my only question is, Ms. Cates, could you confirm that you're asking the assessment be revised to $950,000 or $286 a square foot based on your comparables submitted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
That's all my questions. Mark, any requirement for summary?
I don't think so, no.
Thank you. Ms. Cates?
I'm also good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes 20 Lancaster Boulevard. Next property on the docket today is item number 10, file number 22-1521, dealing with a 2023 realty appeal. And it's 102 Grenfell Boulevard. Mr. Mark, would you bear with me 1 second and I'll get your brief up here.
Yeah, just let me know when you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, 102 Grenfell Boulevard, pardon me. Item number 10. Okay, Mark, when you're ready, please.
Sure. So the subject roll number 100030130000. The street address 102 Grenfell Boulevard. It's located in the Old Tuxedo neighborhood. This is a one-story single-family dwelling built in 1952. No age variant on file. The living area 1,659 square feet. Basement type is a full basement, which is finished according to city records. Full bath 1, half bath 3, 1 shower, no central air. The fireplace, there's one fireplace, attached multiple garage, and no pool, no sunroom. Sits on a 12,530 square foot lot with a external corner, light traffic, and park influence. So this property is located on the corner of Grenfell Boulevard and Wellington Crescent. So in the lead up to the hearing, we had been discussing the property, and there were some concerns raised in regards to the condition of the property. I did request photos of this property on the 24th of August after I was informed that the subject was not in good condition and that the utilities were off and that the house was vacant. I did not receive any pictures prior to the evidence exchange, so I did have a look at the applicant's brief when I got it yesterday. There are some photos in there that I think are helpful for the board to see. But I'll let Farah cover those when she goes over it. The property is not in good condition. It seems that the owner has indicated that the house is likely to be demolished. So what we're looking at here is something that currently has an improvement, but the value may be in the land, depending on who the potential purchaser would be. It does create a bit of a challenge in that the comparables that I've prepared are improved sales. I did try to stick with properties around the similar size and age. And there are a couple that are within Old Tuxedo. There are also a couple that are south of Corden in just the regular Tuxedo area. In regards to land sales, there really isn't a vacant land comparable sheet that I've provided, but there are a few sales that I would like to highlight in that if the value truly is in the land, I think it's important to understand that some of these properties, depending on the purchaser, they opt to either, do significant renovations or they opt to knock the house down and build something new. So a few things I noted. My comparable number 2 was it's property in south of Corden in Tuxedo, so not directly in the Old Tuxedo neighborhood. Built in 1957, 1,703 square feet, full basement with basement finish, 2 full baths, 1 half bath, 1 shower, central air, 2 fireplaces, multiple attached garage, no pool, no sunroom. 10,134 square foot lot. This property was purchased in July of 2018 for $555,000. In the listing for that property, they did list the potential to either renovate or to demolish and build new. The owner appears to have opted to renovate and flip that property. So it did sell again in 2019. And the sale price was significantly higher to reflect the renovation sold in November of 2019 for $760,000. So the reason I say that is to highlight the fact that some of these old houses do get the work that's required. It depends on whether or not the owner feels that some people like the charm of the character houses for some of these areas. And some people like modern. In this case, they decided to renovate as opposed to knock it down. So I just wanted to mention that. And also in regards to comparable number 4, this is 304 Bauer Boulevard, also located south of Corden, so in the regular Tuxedo neighborhood as opposed to north of Corden in Old Tuxedo. Built in 1963, it's a 1-story single-family dwelling, 1,740 square feet, full basement. Basement is finished. 1 full bath, 2 half baths, 1 shower, central air, yes. Built-in garage, built-in attached garage, yes. And a sunroom, yes. Sits on a 9,744 square foot lot. This property was purchased in September of 2018 for $550,000. It was demolished subsequent to that purchase. There was a bit of a delay in that it was already into the fall by the time they took possession. The application for the demolition was submitted to the city in March of 2020, I believe. I'd have to double check that. No, sorry. March of 2019. So it was purchased in fall of 2018, and in the spring they took out a permit for demolition. So if you're looking at this sale as the purchaser having bought this for the land, and you use the time adjusted sale price of $596,200 divided by the 9,744 square feet of land area, you'd get a land price per square foot of $61.18 a square foot. So I wanted to highlight that. I also have included on page 2 just a map showing the subject property. You'll see that the subject is located in a very good location on the corner of Grenfell and Wellington Crescent, with frontage and a driveway that goes out onto Wellington Crescent. The other thing I included was another MLS listing. I didn't include it on the comp sheet. It didn't actually show up as one of our improved sales. This one was verified as a land sale as well. But this property was purchased as 232 Lamont Boulevard, was purchased in November of 2020 for $950,000. And a permit was taken out within a few months of possession to demolish the property. So again, going through the same exercise, if we were to take the purchase price, and the sale was registered just prior to the reference date, March 22nd, 2021, for $950,000, and you divide it by the land area, which is 12,995 square feet, you'd get a land sale price per area of land at $73.11 per square foot. So I don't have a land comparable sheet, but I wanted to explain for comparables 4 and that additional sale that they were knocked down after. The timing can sometimes be slightly after. When you take out a demo permit, the work has to be done within 60 days. Otherwise, you start incurring fines. So if it's in the fall or it's getting into late fall and winter's coming, you may not want to knock it down until spring. And I think that's what happened with 304 Bauer. But that's basically my presentation. If you're looking at this in regards to the improved sales, I think there's a range. If you're looking at this in regards to the land value, I believe there's also a bit of a range in regards to sales of lots or houses that were subsequently knocked down in or close to the neighborhood. The assessment at $660,000 improved works out to $397.83 a square foot. But if you go based on land and say that the value's in the land, it's about $52.67 a square foot. So again, the comparable that was knocked down at 304 Bauer, $61.18 a square foot. And within Old Tuxedo, 232 Lamont, that was $73.11 a square foot. So felt like if either way you look at it, and given the condition, I would agree that you probably want to look at this as value being in the land. And I feel like given the location, with frontage right on Wellington Crescent and having a view of the green space along Wellington Crescent and the river as the front view of the house, puts it at a premium location within Old Tuxedo. And I feel that the $52 a square foot that we see for the subject based on the assessment as it stands at $660 is more than fair. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Colatuglio. Ms. Cates, any question of the assessor's evidence?
Yes, thank you. So for your comps on page 1, are you aware if any of them were incapable of occupancy at the time of sale?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. And are you aware if any of them had their utilities shut off?
Again, not aware of that. Only know as to whether, only on the one that I know that it was knocked down. Whether the utilities were off or if it was vacant, I'm not certain.
Okay, thank you. If we turn to your page 3 with the sale of 232 Lamont, so I understand you're using this to show kind of the land value range. But based on this listing, I mean, we could see the house has had recent upgrades and is in fairly good condition. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, absolutely. I was quite surprised that someone would buy this house and knock it down.
So you would agree that this house then is not a tear down property, kind of as defined as being unlivable or unsafe or some sort of hazard?
Yeah, I wouldn't. No, I would say that the purchaser bought it clearly for the land, but no, the house that was there, I think, was fine to a lot of people's standards.
Okay, so when we look at the purchase price then of this house at $950,000, acknowledging that the house is in good condition and the person selling it would have also acknowledged that it's in good condition, would you agree then that there's a difference in trying to derive the land value from a sale like this, where there would be value assigned to the improvements and the site overall versus something like our subject, which both vendor and purchaser could agree is a tear down property?
I wouldn't say that you shouldn't look at it for land. When we verified this, because of the demolition permit being so close to the possession date, we verified it as a land sale. And part of that is that to the actual successful purchaser who went to the open market and sought out this property, the value to them wasn't in the house, despite the house being in relatively okay condition. The value was in the land. It's not similar to the subject in that it's derelict and the utilities have been off for years. And but the land there at the subject isn't derelict, right? Like if you remove the house, it's in a great location, a great lot size. And I think there are buyers specifically within the Old Tuxedo neighborhood that look for the potential of a property beyond the current improvements. They see, their future house there. They don't necessarily see what's there as being a barrier to them, buying in that neighborhood and building something. So this was included. It's not in our sales book because it's not included as an improved sale. Like I said, when it was verified, this was verified as a land sale because of the series of events that took place kind of after the possession.
Okay, but I would suggest that it's not accurate to attribute $950,000 all to land. So would you agree that there's a difference between deriving the land value from a tear down property versus a property which someone just maybe desires to tear down and has the means to tear down, but it's not actually a tear down? Because the vendor in this case is assigning.
Ms. Cates, I believe that the assessor has already answered that question.
Okay.
His opinion. Okay.
I'll move on. Okay, that would wrap up my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Okay, thank you. Okay, Adila, any questions of the assessor?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Doug, any questions?
Oh, my question's been answered, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, my questions are, your comps number 2 and 4 are located, I think you stated, south of Corridon Avenue.
Yeah. So
they're not in Old Tuxedo itself, is that right?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. In your opinion, professional opinion, what is the difference in the marketplace between being north or south of Corridon Avenue?
I would say that Old Tuxedo is a little bit more of a prestigious area than regular Tuxedo. You do find lots of multi-million-dollar homes within Old Tuxedo. Not to say that your regular Tuxedo south of Corridon doesn't have your multi-million-dollar homes as well.
Okay.
But I feel like it is a bit more of a prestigious area than regular Tuxedo.
Okay, thank you. And the subject property located right on Wellington Crescent, right? Okay. All utilities are shut off, is that right? Just to confirm.
Yeah, according to the owner, according to the agent, when I spoke to her, the utilities have been shut off for some time. But maybe Ms. Cates can speak more to that.
Are you aware of any marketing on the subject property at all recently?
No, I wasn't able to find anything, unfortunately.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask Ms. Cates, are you aware of any marketing activity in this property?
No, I'm not.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's my only question. All right. Ms. Cates, bear with us 1 second here and I'll get your brief up. Okay, Ms. Cates, 102 Grenfell Boulevard, please.
Okay, thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our summary of the property characteristics. So this was built in 1952, but it is derelict and it is to be demolished in the future. You can also see our requested assessment of $539,000. If you turn to page 3, you'll see an overview of the site. So the property is in extremely poor condition. It has been vacant since at least 2015 and has had no utilities per the owner since 2018-19 range, and it will be demolished in the future. The site size is 12,530 square feet, and the subject experiences light traffic and is adjacent to the park. And just interesting to note from the aerial photograph that you'll see the access to the property is not completely within the property lines designated. So just a point to note there. So I would like to direct everyone to turn to page 15 just to walk through some of the property photos that I've included here. So these go on for a few pages. So if you just wanted to kind of scroll through and just get a sense of the general condition of the house, then yeah, that would kind of help the remaining argument here. So if we turn now to page 7, this is our direct comparison approach. So we've used land sales here because none of the improved sales available really reflected the condition and nature that the subject property is in. So we've used 3 land sales here, and greater weight has been placed on our comparable 2 due to the proximity of the sale to our reference date. So if you go now to page 8, I've included a chart just kind of summarizing the sales information here and the different comps. So all within Old Tuxedo, try to find as large lot sizes as were available, as similar to the subject as possible. So we've established a range here of 3642 a square foot up to 50.33 a square foot. But I would again say that comp 2 at $42.59 a square foot would be our best comparable. So the subject that the requested value works out to $43 a square foot. It got missed in terms of including it on this page, but I just wanted to make reference to that. And then if I could just direct your attention to page 11, what we've done is we've just included a map showing the proximity of the comp to the subject. So what I've done, so the comp would be kind of outlined in red, and then the subject would be kind of noted with a blue X here. So if you just scroll 11, 12, and 13, you'll see that that's been included just to show that the comps are fairly close to the subject's location and just fairly similar in general. So just to summarize here, our requested value is $539,000 a square foot, or sorry, $539,000 or $43 a square foot. That would conclude my presentation for 102 Grenfell.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cates.
Thank you.
Mr. Colatruglio, any questions on the applicant's evidence?
I do have a few questions. The two land comparables on Girton, did those properties sell with a house on site, or were they true vacant land sales?
Well, we get our land sale data, so we got it from Sabre Filtering for Land. So I can't speak to if there was something on the house, but it was valued for the land, not for any improvements if
Okay.
they were there.
So, yeah. And did you look at the MLS listings for these?
I didn't. I used Sabre data here.
Okay. Because I do see some, like I haven't looked at the listings myself to see, but I do see from Google Street View that there are some houses that are on site on those lots. But I do want to ask about the location. So the location of both of these are kind of right at the fork between Girton Boulevard and Tuxedo Boulevard. Is that correct? Or Tuxedo Avenue, I should say.
Yeah, I would say based on the map here, I have it on Girton, by Tuxedo and Manton Boulevard.
Right, and then it looks like one of the two, looks like 220 Girton, that actually has a driveway that goes right on to Tuxedo Avenue. Is that correct?
I can't comment on that at this time.
Okay. But if you look at your brief and you go to the aerial map view, you could kind of see that there is a little bit of frontage there on page 12, right? You could see that the parcel kind of shifts. It's kind of pie-shaped. There is a bit of frontage on Girton, but then it shifts onto Tuxedo Avenue, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you agree that relative to the subject, these would be considered an inferior location. Not only are they right by the medium traffic Tuxedo Avenue, they're also commercial adjacent and near the bus route, right? And the view out the front would be to the condo across the street and the back of the comedy club attached to the neighborhood shopping center, correct?
I would agree that these site influences would be inferior to that of the subject, but I wouldn't say the location overall, as they're all within Old Tuxedo, which is the same as the subject neighborhood. And I think we can all appreciate that finding, land sales, the data is limited. So
yeah, it is limited for sure. Yeah. And I also note that a couple of these sales are dated in that comparable one is from 2016, comparable 3, which is in Old Tuxedo, has no land influences. That one is in 2017. Would you agree that normally there would be some time adjustment consideration to the reference date of April 1st of 2021?
Yeah, I could agree that a time adjustment could be warranted. However, as stated, I feel our best comp is comp 2, which is pretty close to the reference date and wouldn't really warrant any time adjustment there. So our
Yeah,
request
so
value is
for
right at
sure,
five.
I would agree that comparable 2, maybe you don't need to, but for sure, I would say comparable 1 and 3, you probably ought to keep that in mind when you're looking at this $50.33 or this $36.42, is that the sales are quite dated to the reference date. And I would suggest that given the location of the subject and given the location of your comparable number 3, that the quality of the location, comparable 3 is probably the most comparable in regards to quality of location. It doesn't have the park, but it's an interior lot with an old
Mark,
tuxedo.
maybe ask a question, please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you agree with the time adjustment that the comparable at 232 Hansard would support, the 5267 that we have based on land for the 660,000? Do you think that's a bit of a stretch, or do you feel that that's reasonable?
I would say I don't agree with that, and that's why we appealed the property. So while I would say that some time adjustment could be warranted to these sales, we have our sale right at 2020 at $42.59 a square foot, which warrants no time adjustment. Ideally, if we could have had all sales from 2020, that would have been best, but we have to work with what we have. So I don't consider 2016 or 17 too old to lose relevancy there.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Adila, any questions of the appellant?
My question regarding the comparables have been explained. Thanks.
Thank you. Doug, any questions?
No questions from me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cates, my question is regarding your request for assessment reduction to $539,000. Are you basing that on vacant land sales, or are you basing it on your comparables? I'm unsure if you knew the answer to whether those were improved sales or not at the 2 on Girton Boulevard at the land rate?
I know I can elaborate. So,
I'm sorry.
Our requested value, we're using our starting point of the 2015 sale, and then we're going based on our comps. So our comps are land sales. I couldn't speak to whether there was potentially a house on it at the time. I know that some of them have houses built on them now, because as I looked on the assessment records, there was new builds. These are our land sales from Sabre. So my requested assessment is based on the range established by the comps, but specifically comp 2, as well as the average and median established by these comps.
Okay, so you're asking, based on that, you're asking to revise the assessment to $43 a square foot of land value. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and when we look at your comparisons in the heavy traffic location, and the third one is off of Corden Avenue, but how would you reconcile would you consider the subject property to be far superior to the comparisons?
I wouldn't consider the subject property to be far superior. I do know the subject property, the intersection is a desirable location at the corner of Grenfell and Wellington, but I've specifically focused on comps all in Old Tuxedo. So while I could acknowledge that there's a difference in site influences, I would say that the comps that we have are still comparable to the subject lot.
Okay. All right. That is all my questions. Mr. Carlo Tuglio, any requirement for summary?
Just briefly summarize that I feel like looking at this as land value probably is the most appropriate given the condition. And given the sales that I demonstrated were houses that were purchased to be demolished, and the land value per square foot for those properties, and if we were to time adjust some of the comparables that were presented by the applicant, that the current assessment based on $52 a square foot for the subject in regards to the land is more than supported.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cates?
Sure, I'll quickly summarize as well. This property is in poor condition and will be demolished, and I agree, it should be looked at based on land value. Our comps reflect actual land value versus comps that have been presented as supporting something in the range of $50 to $60 a square foot are all based on houses in good condition that were purchased as someone had the ability to demolish it, but they weren't tear down properties. So I feel our comps are a better reflection of what the actual land value should be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes 102 Grenfell Boulevard. Next property on the docket, our last one is file number 13. Pardon me, item number 13, file number 22-2643. We're dealing with a 2023 Realty appeal, and the address is 6343 South Point Drive. And Mark, would you mind holding on for a minute while we pull up your brief?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay, Mark, when you're ready, please.
Okay, just before I start, I want to confirm one thing. The applicant, are you guys requesting confirmation of the value, like the brief?
Yes.
I'll keep my presentation brief if that's the case.
Okay, please read it in for the record.
Yeah.
And summarize your opinion of value, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So roll number 0100-440-7700. The street address 6343 South Point Drive, located within the South Point neighborhood. Two-story home, single-family dwelling built in 1978. Total living area 2618 square feet. Full basement, which is finished. One full bath, one half bath, one shower. No central air, two fireplaces, attached multiple garage, and has a sunroom. Sits on a lot of 10,646 square feet, has the Assiniboine River influence as well as a park influence. Total assessed value under appeal, $722,000, which comes in at $275.78 a square foot. The data was very limited. I tried to select properties within the South Point neighborhood. I have 3 comparables. They do range in building type. Most are 2/1 stories. There is one 4-level split. They vary in age and size, but a very tight range in regards to the sale price per square foot after all time adjustments, the low end being $272.45 and the high end being $277.36. I feel like the subject property is supported at $275.78 a square foot, and I'm asking that the value be confirmed.
Thank you, Mr. Carlatuglio. Ms. Cates, any comments?
No questions at this time.
Okay. And just to confirm, you're asking for a confirmation of the value?
Yes.
Okay. Adila, any questions of the assessor?
Not at this time, no. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, any questions?
Not to be thinking.
Okay. And I have no questions. Ms. Cates, would you like to make a statement on the value of the property?
Sure. Per section 54(1) of the Municipal Act, I would like to request a confirmation of the assessment at this time.
Okay. Mark, any questions of the appellant?
No questions.
Thank you. Doug, any questions?
No, thank you.
Adila, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. And I have no questions excuse me. Okay. So with that request for confirmation, that concludes 6343 South Point Drive. And we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for both parties for appearing. Thank you. And hear from us as soon as possible. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.